You're all set? Yeah, you're all good.
Hi, everyone. How's everybody doing? Good. Cool. Can you hear me okay? Like, mic, you're good? Yes? Low? Yeah? Oh, awesome. Sweet. Cool. Well, thank you so much for the introduction. And I kind of want to continue off of what she was talking about connectedness and about the industry and about how we still have a lot of work to do, and we have a lot of work to do together. And so I would like to talk to you guys a little bit about cannabis for this generation and making sure that we think a little bit bigger and think about cannabis for the next generation as well. So again, my name is David Drake, CEO and founder of Cannabis Reports. I wanted to make sure and thank our organizers, the Seed Series, for bringing everybody together. Also Direct Cannabis Network, which is a really, really great networking organization. So many incredible individuals are part of it. And I really, really encourage you to get involved with it because there's a tremendous amount of connectedness and a lot of power with bringing these people together. Also want to thank Meadow for this incredible space that we have here. They are, if you guys don't know who they are, they provide some really great software for managing your back of house, all kinds of different things with production, dispensary, delivery, so definitely check them out for that. And I want to thank all of you guys for being here too, because you guys are what keeps everything moving forward and keeps the innovation happening. And you guys bring energy to the space and allow us to have an awesome evening and get to share things together. So really want to thank you guys for being here. Really, really appreciate it. So you're probably wondering who I am. As I said, my name is David Drake. You can find all of my internet stuffs under Random Drake, so you can follow me on Twitter, or my blog is randomdrake.com. I have all kinds of profiles everywhere. Founder and CEO of Cannabis Reports. To date, we've gotten $1.2 million worth of capitalization. We've organized 25,000 different SKUs in the cannabis space, all the way back to the farms where the flowers are grown, to the chocolatiers that actually put the chocolate in your hands, including lab tests, information, just a tremendous amount of information to try to bring a little bit of clarity and organization to this industry. Right now, I have 13 employees in 4 different states. We are currently operating throughout the United States and also getting into other countries with different seed companies and different organizations elsewhere. I'm a huge open source advocate. I write lots of open source software. I have a GitHub profile with lots of stuff on it. I've been writing code for a very long time. I'm also recently a father. I have a new little girl, and I take that very seriously and bring that with me to the industry and to leadership roles in trying to be a CEO of a company in this space. I was a teacher for a long time. I used to teach special ed, math and science, and so I have a very keen understanding of how powerful information can be to people and about how giving people the capacity to talk about things at an elevated level is a really, really important thing, and education is huge in this space and something we really need. Additionally, I'm an artist. I was a professional actor for many years, and I very much have a humanity side to me. As I said, I was a technologist, so I have a Commodore 64 tattoo. I've been doing computer stuff for a really long time, and I really, really do feel like there's a lot of things that technology can still do for cannabis. I feel like as a technologist, we've let you down, and I think that there's a lot of innovation to be made in the space, and I think we can do a lot of work together. And additionally, I'm a human, just like all of you, and starting to rediscover and reevaluate our relationship with cannabis and getting this plant back to us that was such a useful thing for so many thousands of years. The fact that we're just now reestablishing a relationship with it, I think it's important that we all come together and understand that we're all humans experiencing cannabis just as cannabis is experiencing us. So I want to talk about the next generation. This is my daughter. She's super cool. And one of the things that I really, I know I'm totally shamelessly putting in here, but I want to make sure that people start to think a little bit more about, instead of just, their exit 2 years from now or how they're going to make money in 6 months, I really want people to understand that we are setting the pace and setting the building blocks for the next industry, for the next generation, for our children, for the people who are in school. We're setting that tone and setting that voice, and that's a very important thing that I want everybody to take really seriously. And so usually when I meet people and I sit down with people and we sit down with our customers, I almost always ask, what's your relationship with cannabis? And I would encourage you guys to try and do that, because it's really fascinating when you find out people's history and how they got involved with cannabis, how it's affected them, where they come from. And I think that it also helps illustrate that we are all very much at the very, very beginning. A lot of people think that we're over this big, huge hill and that we're going down a downhill slope, and it's so easy from here on out. And I'm sorry, but that's bullshit. There's a lot of work to be done. And so I think it's really important that we connect with each other and understand where we came from in terms of cannabis. My relationship with cannabis started in the 80s with drug abuse resistance education. I actually was the president of my DARE chapter in 6th grade. And all the way throughout high school, I was actively discouraging people from consuming cannabis or doing anything. And it seems pretty odd, but this was the beginning of my relationship with cannabis. And I have to tell you, this is the exact same relationship with cannabis that a lot of children are getting as they're beginning. They're starting to see it and not know that there's this incredible world out there with it. So in high school, I was going to join the Marines, and then I got high. Literally, the very first time I had an abundance of THC in my system was the day before I was going to go to MEPS for the Marine Corps. And I don't know why I decided to do that, but I never ended up joining the Marines, which led me down a very different path. So in college, I went to University of Montana to start with. I studied acting there. Northern Virginia Community College, eventually went to George Mason University in Virginia. I have a software application development degree and a theater degree, and I take both of those very seriously and try to mix both of those together in everything that I do. I actually started kind of doing research into cannabis when I was in college. We had an argument paper that we had to write for an English class, and so I came together and talked to my entire class about cannabis, how it was important to me and how I thought that it could be a changing force. And this was before it was kind of, okay to talk about it. And I literally was that guy. I was the dude with the little jeweler's loop, and people were like, oh, the hairs totally get you high. And I would vehemently say, no, the hairs do not get you high. It's trichomes, not crystals. I was that guy. And so I'm still extremely passionate about cannabis and kind of obsessed with it a little bit. As I moved out from the East Coast, I ended up in Montana in 2006. I got very, very active with NORML. And started to talk about policy and start to talk about change. I traveled around my state and started teaching classes about cannabis. I went to Washington, D.C. and sat in front of my senator and said, this is a very important issue, you need to pay attention to this. Got with a medical program that was going on in Montana, which, as you guys know, is a total shit show now, unfortunately. And I started getting involved in Web 2.0. Before startups were startups and before the cloud was the cloud, I was building web applications, dealing with a lot of servers, and getting involved with technology. And that's where I picked up Linux and programming and databases and learned a lot about it. And then my obsession with cannabis began. One of my favorite things about cannabis is that you can pick any angle on cannabis and geek out as hard as you want on it. Whether it is the legal aspect of cannabis, whether it's the biology behind cannabis, whether it's the money that exchanges hands with cannabis, there's so much about the plant, and you can find something about it to identify with, and you can just go with it, create a business with it, create your life around it. And that's a really, really powerful thing to have all encapsulated in a plant. We all learned math, we can convert grams to ounces and ounces to pounds, and we learned that because of cannabis, and that's something that's kind of cool. So I literally got very obsessed and started spreading all this information out there. So if you actually search Google for cannabis training for Scrog, which is a screen of green, it's a growing method, I actually wrote the guide on that. So I'm the first hit here. I wrote the overview of cannabis training way back in the day, and this has been republished all over the place, and it's because I feel a passion for information. I feel a passion for sharing this information. Cannabinoid synthesis. So I don't know how much a lot of you guys understand about it, but we used to believe for a really long time that CBD magically turned into THC, which then magically turned into CBN. And that's what we understood about cannabinoid synthesis. It was completely false. And during the late 90s, mid 2000s, there was research coming out of Japan where they were discovering an additional precursor to these chemicals that allowed these to be synthesized. But nobody was talking about it. Nobody was going and shouting from the rooftops, hey, you guys are wrong about this shit. And so I did something, and if you search for cannabinoid synthesis in Google, the chart that comes up is the one that I created in 2008. It's the entire cannabinoid synthesis process, including the V side of things, so THC-V, CBD-V, and where everything comes from. And I basically took all of the science, put it together, and put it out there because somebody had to tell somebody. And so it's a really cool chart. I invite you to check it out. It might be inaccurate now. I'm not a chemist. But frankly, that's one of the coolest things about cannabis and about meeting people in cannabis is you don't have to have a degree or be a doctorate in your field necessarily. You just have to have a passion for helping people and for dealing with the plant. And then you can excel way beyond people with degrees and with people who have done this for a long time. There's a lot of folks in here who have absolutely no accreditation in a big school, but if you ask them about chemistry, man, they will go on for hours and hours and hours and hours, and that's really, really cool about cannabis. And so it was this specificity and accuracy that I really, really wanted to see in cannabis. As I was going around teaching people about cultivation and talking about strains to people, I was really kind of upset that when you mentioned blueberry to somebody, nobody knew who DJ Short was. And that really kind of pisses me off. Because you have people who have been working for decades, traveling around the world, going to countries, sourcing these strains, bringing them back, breeding them, doing all these programs, and yet when it gets there on the shelf, somebody just calls it blueberry, and suddenly the seed company and the breeders that were behind it are just gone. And that wasn't okay with me. Living around farmers and growing up around farmers, that was totally not okay with me. And so I started to look into all the different breeders, Soma, Sensi Seed, Subcool, looked into the old stuff, Flying Dutchmans, and really, picked up the Canna Bible, picked up the Big Book of Buds. A lot of you might not even remember overgrow.com was actually the largest source of cannabis information out there. There were millions and millions of posts on it, and it was shut down, and we lost everything. We lost all of the information we knew about cannabis. Everything that was on the web was gone in a heartbeat. And so I tried to get as much as I could from that, brought it all together, and boom, Smoke Reports. 2008, I opened it up, I did the research on all of the strains, all the way back to the land races for the first 2,460 strains of cannabis all by myself. I sat there and just went through books and got people to scan me old, seed handouts from Grateful Dead concerts, and just literally everything I could find I wanted to get in this database. And so from 2008 to 2014, I just sort of had this strain database sitting out there. I sat around waiting for somebody to take over the specificity. I was doing lots of things in this space. I didn't live around Silicon Valley. I was living in Montana. I couldn't do a startup in Montana. And so a lot of really good companies came out. Weed Maps came out, Leafly, Sticky Guide, MJ Freeway, BioTrack THC. Good companies that are doing good work and helping out a lot of people and informing a lot of folks, but they just weren't going far enough. I didn't feel like they were innovating and taking the next step and saying, listen, we need to pay attention to cannabis and its very, very specific intricacies, and we need to highlight that, and we need to talk about that. And nobody was doing it, and so I got angry again. And I basically said, somebody's got to do it. There's got to be a better way, that classic line you hear. And so this is a quote, actually one of the things that really, really set me off. And I read this when it came out, and it said, safe for work mode. This company has always been a safe site to browse while at work, at home, with the kids, or at church. With photos becoming more prominent on the dispensary menu pages, we felt it was time to protect our visitors a little more, and so by default, images are now hidden until you opt in to see them. And so one of the largest cannabis information websites on the planet was hiding images of cannabis because it was still this very taboo thing to not talk about at church. And that's not okay. So I continued to hone my craft and hone my technology skills. I wrote energy trading algorithms for a huge natural gas and electric trading company. I watched a shit ton of Shark Tank. And I know that sounds really goofy, but boy, what a way to learn how to fail gracefully and how to learn about what you can do right and what you can do wrong. I got very involved in Hacker News, which is a website that I encourage all entrepreneurs and startup folks to visit and check out and learn about. And with that, I eventually landed a job as a CTO to Y Combinator company. It was an Andreessen Horowitz-backed company, super huge. They're doing awesome, but ultimately fixing phones is not my passion. And so we got started, and I started right away, and I rewrote everything. And one thing that I want to encourage folks to do is something that we did. Don't operate in a vacuum. So you might have this great idea and this great software and this great platform and people are talking about you, and that's all well and good, but until you actually go and talk to an individual about your idea and express that to them and actually talk to the business people that you are actually targeting, you're not doing your job. And so we went to Dolores Park multiple times, and I had a little cardboard sign I carried around that said, talk to me about cannabis for a free lighter. And I went around and just talked to people. I pitched the idea, I talked about our website, I talked about what the needs were, about how technology was failing. And I wanted to know, like, are we really solving a problem here? Because if we are, then I'm gonna do this. But if we're not, then I'm not gonna waste my time. And so I really encourage you guys, like, don't operate in a vacuum. Go out and talk to people. And so I said, let's do this. And so I rewrote everything from the ground up. That old website you saw, 75,000 lines of code later, I've rewritten everything from the ground up for cannabis. I didn't take software and modify it. It was literally, let's start from scratch, let's do it right. So we redesigned and 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 iterated and eventually released the Kraken, and we were able to launch, and it was awesome. And so less than a year ago, we had a private event. We didn't spend tens of thousands of dollars to attend a big hemp con or anything like that. We got artists and we got musicians together and we got food together and we had our own private launch event, and it was very successful, and we got to talk to people and engage with people in the community. And so, you know, starting small is a really good thing. I started the company in my 500 square foot studio apartment on Geary and Jones. And literally, I lived in that apartment, got up to 6 employees coming over to my house every single day and waking up and, hi, oh, there's the employees, awesome. And then we moved up to a 750 square foot 1-bedroom. So I was still living and working, and then we got up to more employees and literally taking investor meetings in coffee shops and in the lobby of our apartment. And then finally, we moved to a shared office space, which I highly recommend you guys check out. Rocket Space is where we moved into. They have a lot of different places. We're with WeWork over in Berkeley right now, and they have campuses all over the world. It's a super awesome cost-saving technique, and you get to network and work with a lot of folks, so I'd recommend checking that out. And then it came time to start to talk to investors. So I've now talked to dozens and dozens of investors, both in the cannabis space, out of the cannabis space, young, old, and so one thing that I would really encourage to you guys is say no to jerks. Honestly, if they don't really feel like they're getting what you are about and don't feel like they're understanding what cannabis is, it's okay to say no. There are lots of other people out there, and you should have enough capacity in yourself and what you believe in to say, thanks for the money, but I don't think this is going to work. Also, keep in mind that they want you to be incredible. When you go to talk to an investor and you go to pitch to somebody, they're not wanting you to fail. They want you to be super awesome, because then they're going to make more money and they're going to be more successful. And so I really encourage people to keep that in mind when they're talking to investors. And just, you know, spend less time on your deck and more time on your product. I see and talk to a lot of entrepreneurs who spend days, if not weeks, just messing around in PowerPoint. Meanwhile, there are customers out there to be acquired. There are businesses they could be talking to. They could be actually developing their website and doing more with it. And so, to date, I still don't have a pitch deck. We sit down and we talk and we show off the product and we talk about real numbers and we talk about real things. And I think that's an important concept to understand, is that you've got to put the cart before the horse. You can't just come up with a presentation, hope that it's going to land, and raise a bunch of money on it. You've got to do some work. There's a lot of people here that have been working a lot harder for a lot longer than you have. So, you know, take some time, do some work, and then go in front of people, and then it's a lot easier. You're not nervous, you're not feeling like you're trying to sell them to something, you're showing them this cool thing. And it's a very different conversation, so I really, really encourage people to take that to heart. The other thing too is, remember, there are some people who are cannabis people and some people who aren't, so be prepared to do a little education if you need to. And keep moving forward. If you have an expiration date, or you think that like 3 to 5 years is sort of your time limit on this, and then you're going to get out or do whatever, I have news for you. This is the wrong industry for you. We are not even going to know even close what this is going to look like in 3 to 5 years. Not even a small long shot. And so, if you really are putting a timeline on it, on yourselves like that, you should really think about, you know, where your dedication lies. And if you want to go make money, there's a lot of good ways to make money. But the cannabis space needs good people who are willing to be around for a little while and help. One thing that we're doing is we're actually publishing open traceability guidelines. And what this is it is an open document that people will be able to supply information and feedback to. And we can all figure out a better way to start to communicate, and so we can move forward together as an industry. Going off of the togetherness that we were talking about earlier, we can create a much more powerful force if we all band together and talk about the same things. So we're doing some really cool stuff and creating some open source things for that. Right now we have an open API for all of our data. So every single thing that's in our system, whether it's retail data, production data, lab tests, photos, descriptions, it's 100% open to the public. We have over 250,000 hits against our API since we have opened it. We now have data science labs using it, researchers are using it, app developers are using it, website developers are using it, so that we can all have a common language and a way to move forward and talk about things very specifically, so that everybody has an opportunity. And we literally, when I say we have data, we have a lot of data. I don't really share this with many people, but I thought it would be kind of cool. So this was as of a couple months ago. This is every dispensary and delivery service in the entire United States. We have data on over 600,000 different retail listings. And we're organizing all this data and bringing it together and delivering it to everybody so that we can have a common vocabulary and a common language. And so this is just, here in Los Angeles area, you can see there's nearly 2,000 dispensary and delivery companies. And as you start to zoom out, you can start to see the picture of just how big and how difficult of an animal California is. Because as you start to look at the West Coast, you can see there's 4,000 to 5,000 retail locations in California. And when you look at Colorado or Oregon, you're talking about a few hundred. So when people try to look at California and say, you know, oh, they're catching up to these other recreational markets, sorry, it's actually the other way around. California's been doing it a really long time, and there's a lot of cannabis here. And so just trying to show off, and this is every dispensary and delivery company in the entire United States. We have over 8,000 of them. So there's a lot of opportunity out there for everybody. And so I want to encourage people to start to take that think globally, act globally type of thing, and try to create stuff for now, but think about the future. I don't know how many people know what this is, especially people who have lived in California or recreational states for a while. This is resin. Do you guys remember scraping resin and smoking resin? I know it seems funny, but this is what children, this is what middle schoolers, this is what your grandparents, this is what adults are selling and consuming because they don't have options. This is a reality in the rest of the country. We think that everything's all cool and hunky-dory because we live in recreational states, we live in medical states. But every day we have people calling us from around the country and around the world asking very basic questions about cannabis. And yeah, they're probably smoking resin still. So people still do this. This is still a reality. And I don't want that to be a reality for my daughter or for the next generation of people that are consuming cannabis. I want us to be able to elevate things to the point that we don't have to do that anymore, and that doesn't have to be something to ever consider scraping their bowl to try and get some, it's ridiculous. And so I really do think that, you know, let's work together. There is more than enough to go around in every single vertical you can possibly imagine. Whether you're in edibles, whether you're in data, whether you're in software, whether you're in grow equipment, whether you're in extracts, there's a lot of people doing a lot of stuff right now, and if you're doing things right and you're making good product, you're gonna do just fine. And I don't mean to get a little hippie on you, but I'm going to. I firmly believe that the plant will take care of things. It just does. It just has the capacity to do that, and I think that as long as you give it the opportunity to do so, that things will work itself out. But if you push really hard, you try to make some really big profits, you try and scrape everything together as best as you can, you're gonna take advantage of it, and it's not gonna work out for you. It just doesn't. I don't know why, but it just doesn't. And this is a cannabis plant. This is a sativa. It's about a 21-week flower time, and it's months and months to flower. These are some of the most delicious flavors you've ever had out of cannabis in your entire life. The plant is literally this color. It's almost black. And so I want to illustrate to you guys, cannabis is a very amazing plant, and there's a lot of variety still to be explored, and a lot of land races, a lot of countries that we can still go to and learn from. So don't just think that cannabis is done and we understand it, we know what it is. There's a lot more to go around. So I invite all you guys to just think a little bit more about working together about, you know, let's not build a bunch of dominoes that can be toppled over, but let's plant some really firm roots. Let's think about the next generation of cannabis consumers, and let's build something really cool together. Thank you very much.